band.
Got it. Stay. It made a little Christmassy.
Why not? Yeah. God, great sounding band.
Oh, that's my boys.
Wayne Bergeron, just, God, sounds so good. My guest today, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Kubis. Very excited to have Tom Kubis on. And yeah, it's been it's been a long time since we saw each other.
It has been. Well, it's been a long freaking couple years here. This is crazy.
Well, but I mean, you and I haven't seen each other for, I don't know, 20 years or so. I mean, a long time. Because in the old days, that's when, well, I guess we were hanging out around the same area.
Yeah. Where did the time go?
Especially when you realize time really doesn't exist,
Well, that's right. And from when I'm here, you don't exist. You were telling me this. This is a little private joke. No, it's funny. But what's funny, like that band you just heard, that you talk about where the time goes. This is 33 years that I've basically had that band, and it's the same guys that I had. They were all young and single, and now they're all divorced and. That's our little joke. But I mean, it's the same people. The only way you can get off the band is if you pass on, and so that's pretty loyal.
That's really something. Well, at least they improved because it sounds, or maybe they always sounded that good, but they sound
They
great.
have not.
You
I
know?
mean, yeah. I mean, they just are amazing people. They've always sounded great since they were children, and it just and they're still in the studios. I mean, I was playing with a lot of these people back in the kind of early '70s, and
Yeah.
a lot of people aren't playing anymore who played in that era.
Really?
And these people, they're thriving. They're still in the studio. They're still doing stuff. Our piano player Jim Cox, he goes out with
Jim
uh,
Fox.
yeah, I mean, he's just a freaking amazing player, and he's either plays with Barbara Streisand or he's out with all kinds of Ringo or whatever, and of course Wayne and Andy Martin and Salazana. I mean, everybody in the band. I can go through everybody. They're all just they're doing it. They're still in the studios doing stuff.
What size band is it?
It's a regular big band. It's 20, when we perform, we've had a steady gig once a month for it's going on like 14 years, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we started this little place called Don the Beachcomber down in Huntington Beach.
Right.
And we were there for a long time, 9 years, I think. And I'm sorry, what was your question again?
My question was how big was the band? But
yeah, it's about 20. We have 5 saxophones, 4 trombones, 4 trumpets, and then we have piano, bass, drums, guitar, and vibes. And we have our vocal group, which is the Swing Kittens, and that adds another 3. So it's just a big entourage of talent.
Okay, so gosh, there's so many questions. So first of all, who's in the vocal group?
Who's in the vocal group? The vocal group is 3. They actually started out in a different band, but it's my daughter, which is Nicole Kubis, and then there's Nicole Pereira and Kaylee Griffith, and they're the Swing Kittens. And they do a lot of stuff. Well, they do a variety of stuff, but they do a lot of stuff from like the like the 40s kind of stuff, all the way to contemporary stuff, And they've been with the band since we started. And it's funny because when we do all these concerts, we have this big huge group of people, and then the pictures that we see when people come and see us, it's always the Swing Kittens. They get the cred. But they're fantastic, and they do a great job. They do just a fantastic job.
Where do you actually play now once a month?
Well, which is an interesting story, because I mean, it's hard enough to find a place for a big band to play at all,
Yeah.
And Donna Beachcomber was good, and the guy was who owned it he loved bands, he loved music, and so he gave us a once a month spot there. So once that ended, they sold. They didn't know what they were doing. It's in Sunset Beach. It was too old to tear it down because it was kind of a landmark.
Historical, yeah.
Yeah, and so they couldn't figure out what to do. So the lease ran out, blah, blah, blah. And it just so happened that a couple guys in the band mentioned this place called the Gas Lamp, which was right up the street on PCH in Long Beach. And I called the guy. It's hard to find a place. And I called the guy and he says, well, let's get together and meet. So I met him at his place the month that we were done at the Beachcomber. They closed. And he goes, when do you want to start? And he goes, well, I start this month. So it doesn't make any difference, you go from month to month. And I'm going, this is way too good to be true. Plus he had a beautiful sound system. It's like Vegas. Place.
Wow. Really?
Fantastic. Yeah. And it's huge stage, blah, blah, blah. And his name is Mike Neufeld. And he's the owner, and he goes, why don't you come in? We'll start. And so we've been there, I think now 3, going on 4 years now. And once a month. Same old
That
thing.
is cool. What day? What is it, like the last something or the first?
And this was confusing to a lot of people. It's always the 4th Monday of every month. And it's not the last Monday, because sometimes there's 5 Mondays. It's always the 4th Monday.
I get that. The gas light?
Gas lamp.
Gas lamp. I'll
PCH,
put that in.
PCH in Long Beach.
PCH Long Beach. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the hey, David Diggs says hello.
David Diggs, my buddy. Dave Dave and Dave Siebels were a couple characters that we all wound up at Orange Coast College together so many years ago, and nobody really knew each other. You know, we got there, blah blah, and we just somehow Dave, he wanted to write. I wanted to write. Dave Siebels wanted to write. There's another guy, Tom Saviano's great saxophone.
Hey, Tom Saviano, yeah.
Yeah, and he wanted to write, and we come into this place where the guy who actually was the band director didn't like people writing, but everybody was so great at it. Dr. Charles Rutherford, he let us write, and so that was kind of where we got our first stuff. Dave came out with albums right after that. First Flight, I think, is the one that he keeps putting up on Facebook. And I kept writing, and Tom Saviano was doing a lot of producing and writing and stuff. So we all kind of cut our teeth on this band, which was just absolutely, but it was a great training ground for us. 2 years of just, and the bands were always really good. Great program there at that time.
Yeah, Doc Rutherford was like renowned as well. Yeah,
he was a genius. He was a genius at getting things done. I mean, he had this little community college, you know, he had the Count Basie band, he had Duke Ellington band. He would get all these people to show up, and it always the Oliver Nelson or whatever, you know, for these judges, and he'd have all these kinds of crazy people. And it was stunning. It was just it was a beautiful time.
Somebody ought to write a little movie about that, like a documentary or I don't know, but that's such. I think a lot of people outside of this area don't really know about that, and it was like so rich, right? It just like wow.
Well, you know, and the next step was after we graduated, then I went to Long Beach State, which at that point had this amazing program as well. That just like 2 programs right in a row, and all these players like from Orange Coast College, and then all the players from Long Beach all came, and that in itself, I think. Those 2 things would make a great story, because you're looking at people like Dan Higgins, Greg Huckins, John Prince, of course, was involved in doing this whole thing. And all these people just all came together at the same time. Jim Cox was in the band. Jay Anderson is now in New York. All these people are just like these stunning, frightening players. It was an interesting time down here in Southern California.
That's incredible. It really is incredible. I wish I was that person who could write and do something with that, but that's not my forte. But I definitely think somebody should do it. Maybe Jonathan Widron might do it. He's like a really good writer, critic guy who's written for various papers. Do you know his name, Jonathan?
No,
Widron?
I don't. No, yeah. But it indeed was a time and a place for all of us, and it was a great, you know, just pushing off point. We had the right teachers. You know, so many times you get the wrong educator who puts you down and makes you hate music and whatever. These people that we had were just like they just wanted us to do better, and would give us carte blanche in writing for the, and then they'd use our music at festivals. You know, that's we were let go. It was beautiful. You know.
Well, so big band. I was talking to Henry Franklin yesterday, actually, and we were talking about big bands. And his dad, I didn't realize that his dad was a trumpet player named Sammy Franklin here in LA. You know, he was brought up under him, and his dad was a big band guy. You know, but Henry, once he got a hold of the bass and like looked at jazz, he went in a kind of a different direction, right? But we were talking about big bands and. I mean, I'm sure it's the same with anything, but it seems like big bands have had such a, let's see, what do I want to say? Like a different, from arranger to arranger, very different genre. It's almost like a genre within the genre, right?
I mean, the difference between writers and what, you know, how they do stuff.
Arrangers, yeah.
Well, a lot of it, I think the reason you can kind of, I think the thing that kind of sets that up is the fact that we all have had different experiences with the people. We're all inspired by different people. Yeah. And we grew up playing with, in different ways. Now, I come from a different area than just about everybody, because I was, when I was a kid, I wasn't listening to Miles Davis and Coltrane and those guys. I was playing in Dixieland bands. And so I was listening to Louis Armstrong, Wild Bill Davison, Eddie Condon's band, and playing with those guys out here. I played with Wild Bill Davison when I was a kid, Kid Ory, and all those people. So, and then I worked at Disneyland playing in a Dixieland band out there. And so I grew up playing next to some of this, but my favorite player, this is probably the guy that changed my life, is a guy named Jackie Kuhn, who was a trumpet player. And I stood next to him, every day in my little Pearly band outfit. And he would just play these amazing, beautiful, inspired lines, no matter what was happening at Disneyland, whether there were elephants or ducks walking by or whatever. He was just playing this incredibly inspired stuff. So I grew up playing kind of in this more melodic sense, but I always had this thing of, when I had the chance to have a little band to write out the parts, I thought that was kind of neat. I could kind of like write the clarinet part out and the trumpet part. So I wrote kind of coming from that area, and then having the opportunity when I got into high school at Huntington Beach High School, a guy named Tom Fitzgerald let me write some stuff, and so it was great. But wow, I could write for more people. This is kind of cool. But how we come up is going to be how we create music. I come from Dixieland, and a lot of the stuff I do is kind of it's not Dixieland, but it has a lot of those elements in it. And then some people who grew up listening to Miles and Coltrane and whatever, they come up with those things, that's how they hear music. And so all this, that's the magic of arranging, is that all this stuff goes into your arrangement, and then it makes it sound completely different than the next cat, unless you're trying to imitate that cat. But everybody comes up like Thad came up in a totally different era, playing with totally different bands in totally different circumstances. And so his music reflects that. Same way with Ellington, all those cats, Sammy, the same way. He came up, and the people that inspire you become part of your arrangement. And that's how this whole thing works.
Yeah. Yeah. I was mentioning yesterday, I was talking about, of course I was talking about you because we were coming up to you, and Steve Hofstetter. I mean, these are LA guys, Steve Hofstetter, Kim Richmond.
Oh yeah.
Bob Florence.
If Kim Richmond is listening, Melon Bells, he'll know what that is. So
okay.
But yeah, Steve Hofstetter, what a great trumpet player. Oh my God, he's just even amazing. He's stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He came up.
They all come at it completely different. Roger Newman.
Yeah, Roger Newman.
Clausen, great writer. Didn't get enough credit for all the big band stuff that he's done. I mean, they all came at it. They all come at it from how they grew up, who they were inspired by, and that goes into their arrangements, and that's why they all sound a little bit different.
Do you? I mean, I know you've done a whole bunch of stuff, but as far as the kind of the expansion of big band into orchestra or small orchestra, has that been part of your path?
No. That's the basic answer is no. And it was never anything. I didn't grow up with it. Although I was an orchestra, I played piccolo in the Long Beach State Orchestra. I was the worst piccolo player in there. Well, I was the only piccolo player. That was
yeah.
But no.
Well, you were also the best piccolo player in there.
Well, I guess so. At that point, I think the conductor might disagree with you. But no, I didnto grow up with that, and it was never anything. I've had to do it upon occasion, for like something that was like a Vegas act or something where you have to add a little string section or whatever. And I've done some string things, but I did find out kind of early on that there's people who do that particular thing so well that you don't even get involved in it. There are people who just do whatever. Gordon Goodwin, he's the master at whatever the whatever size group it is, and he can write for anything, and he's really a god at doing that. I was always so impressed. But he grew up at at Northridge, and they always had an expanded band. They had French horns and stuff along with their group. So he got used to writing for these larger ensembles. I never really kind of broke that. I was kind of stuck in my little my big bandy thing, which I love.
Well, you had stuff like the CBS Jackie Gleason 30-year reunion special. So was that a big band?
It was a big band. Yeah. They at that time they wanted to redo the theme, and they needed it in stereo. I had no idea why they do it in stereo. They needed it in stereo, but they did. And so they needed to redo it. And so I got called for that, to do that. I did Bob Newhart, and it was a Mary Tyler Moore show or whatever. I did a couple of those. I had a contact who was kind of involved with people who redid these shows.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like the go-to guy. Hey, do this, redo this or whatever. So I was kind of I got really good at doing that, imitating, Plus I grew up with those shows. So I knew the mentality of it.
Right. Was it with the Jackie Gleason da 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 da? Was that
that was yeah. And then they'd do That's a Plenty, the little traveling music, and they'd be like,
oh yeah.
So
that's great. I love that song. And then well, it says you worked for Alan and Marilyn Bergman too. What did you do for them?
Well, Alan, and I attribute this to Jack Sheldon, who I worked with quite a bit and did a lot of arranging for. We have a couple albums out, and Alan and Marilyn loved Jack. I think Alan a little more than Marilyn, if I'm not mistaken. But they would come in, and we'd be at Catalina's with Jack Sheldon's band, and he'd be there all the time. And so Alan said, "Hey man, do me a chart." So I did a chart on Nice and Easy, because he wrote the lyrics to that.
Oh.
And so anyway, I did. And a while later, this is a long. A while later, he got involved with a musical that turned into this musical in LA called Like Jazz.
Oh yeah.
And so Alan Marilyn did the lyrics. Cy
Coleman, yeah,
did the music, and then they had actors, and then they had a whole big band on stage. And what happened was they originally tried out the music in New York, and they did it at the Kennedy Center, and made a little record. And anyway, so then they decided that they'd put a script together and actually do this thing in LA. Right. Well, the problem was a lot of guys in LA or in New York weren't going to come to LA to do this. It was like, they had no interest in it. So there was that. And then by the time we got here, there was a few people that changed, or keys that got changed. And so what the idea of the show is that Alan got all these people who were the great big band arrangers at this particular point in time. And he got, this was like Don Sebesky, and I think Sammy Nestico. I can't even name them all. They were all just amazing players or writers. But a lot of the stuff didn't work because it was the wrong key. So they ordered these charts on. So it was my job. He called me up and he goes, "I need you to go through, change keys, try and make it work for these new people, and then we're going to do a show." That's how I got involved.
Oh my God!
With Alan, yeah, Alan, Marilyn, and
what a job!
They were so kind to me. But the drag about, or the thing was, I thought my job was just to do that, and then the last week they looked at me and we're sitting there and like they're rehearsing. He says, "Okay, you're going to conduct this show," and I'm going, "What? I'm going to conduct this show?" I says, I've never conducted anything. I'm not a conductor, not even a semiconductor. And so Marilyn looks at me and goes, she goes, "Well, this ain't Mozart, all these jazz." And so anyway, I wound up conducting the show for them. We were there for, I don't know, a couple months or whatever in LA. And so we did the show. It was going to go somewhere, and it never quite got off the ground. So that was kind of the end of it.
I auditioned for that show.
You did?
I did, and I was with Karen Hammock was my accompanist, and she was really far away from me because the room was one of those theater rooms, you know.
The theater room, yeah, over there, yeah.
And it was Alan and Marilyn and Cy, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, you know, and to top it off, they said, we want to hear like a swing tune, and we want to hear a song that is in your book that you know, you feel really attached to. It
Yeah.
happened to be an Alan and Marilyn song. I think it was How Do You Keep the Music Playing?
The music playing, yeah.
And I said in the beginning, I said, I hope that I get through this one section. And Alan said, I know which section that is. And sure enough, when it came to that, I was like, you know. But anyway, that I think Stacy, the daughter of the piano player, Stacy, and she played trumpet
I know.
and
Yeah.
and sang great. I think she got the part, didn't she?
I don't remember her getting that part. I don't know. It was a lot of people I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
You know. But it was the cool thing about it was a whole big band on stage,
Yeah.
and that was great. And you know, for everybody, I mean, it was great pay. I was a conductor. I never made that kind of money before. That was the greatest Christmas we ever had around this house. It was money for the writing and then the conducting. And all the conducting, I'm just going, 1, 2. This is what you know, I kept doing this for the whole, you know, just finding the right tempo through the whole thing. And the one guy goes, "Man, he's a rock up there, isn't he?" I'm going, I'm freaking scared out of my mind doing this, you know.
It's funny.
It was that was a great gig. But that's how I knew them, and he's been so kind to me over the years. I have a lot of great stories with him on arranging, and he's just been a great guy. He's got lots of stories, insights, you know, the music business, and he's a funny cat too. He's a great cat, Alan, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that you have, well, let's see, I'll just touch on Dewey Ernie for a second because
Mhm.
that was a lot of how I knew you, I think, because Dewey Ernie, beautiful singer from Orange
Yep.
County, and he did a lot of projects with you, a lot of
He
recording
did.
projects.
Well, we flash back to you know, like the early 70s, and when there were casuals, you know, and down in this area, I grew up in Orange County. And down in this area, I was kind of playing piano. There weren't a lot of piano players down here at that time. There was Jack Riedling, Jerry Schrader, a few, but it was always hard to find a piano player. So I was playing it, and so I was doing casuals, and Dewey Ernie was just one of the guys that we did, you know, Ty Yellow Ribbon with or whatever, you know. And then we do a guy named Bob Cassins down here had a group called the Orange County Rhythm Machine, which was the first kind of big band down here that really was kind of like a Buddy Rich kind of band. And so the singer was Dewey Ernie, and which, you know, of course, he was the singer. And so I did some parts. Then he decided that he wanted to do a couple projects, and so we did one with strings, but I've known Dewey I see him where I live in Huntington Beach. There's a club right across the street, literally a half a block from where I live. And he comes down and he still sings, still doing it. Sounds great. You know?
I love Dewey.
Yeah, so I do too.
Heart.
We all love Dewey, you know.
Yeah.
Did you ever? Yeah.
Did you ever work with Stephanie Haynes?
Yeah. Yes. Or what's the bass player?
Jack Prather.
Jack Prather.
Yeah.
And they at Kikuya, which was another place at Huntington Beach, there was a jazz club.
I remember
And
that. Yeah.
on occasion they would play. I didn't work with her very much, but she would come in and sit in, and yeah, she was a legend, you know. And Jack Prather, of course, was a legend too. Just absolutely great cat, great bass player.
Yeah, those guys were great. Actually, see this picture over here?
Yeah.
Which way am I going? That way.
There.
That's
Yeah.
me and Steph in I don't know what year.
Oh my gosh, how
It was a
funny.
long time ago, though.
Yeah. Everything's a long time ago now.
Lifetimes. Yeah, she was really truly she was a really great singer. Just
Yeah.
incredible. Let's see. I was curious. Obviously, you sell your arrangements, and then you teach and you travel and you do workshops, clinics on arranging. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've kind of stopped doing a lot. Well, I retired from teaching. I taught
Okay.
for 35 years.
Yeah.
Fortunately, a community college would let me kind of do whatever I needed to do, and then clinics and stuff like that. I really stopped doing that quite a while back. I never felt I was very good at it. I never felt I was the guy to be doing this. You know, you need like a more educational guy. I was just some kind of wacko, and so I just felt I was the wrong guy to be giving people who were like, looking for the absolute, here's the knowledge, I'm the wrong guy. I'm telling jokes. And so I just felt I was kind of the wrong guy for that. But I've always sold my arrangements. That's one thing Dave Diggs, and hi Dave, Dave and a lot of those people, we started selling our shirts kind of right away, and people would buy them. We started in that era where there was a lot of stock arrangements, and people were just getting sick of playing that stuff. And it was kind of that era where, like, wow, if there was a new thing, somebody had said this band doesn't have this, this is like exciting. Here's a new Dave Diggs chart, there's a new Kubis chart, or a new Cat and Goob chart, or whomever, or Dave Metzger, or all these great people. That was an exciting time for band directors to find something that wasn't in the mood or taking the A train, stuff. So so I've always sold my charts, and I have a website now, tomkubis.com, and I put demos of the stuff that I do on. That's what a lot of the stuff on my page is. It's a lot of demos of the music that I do, and you can go to tomkubis.com and then pick up the arrangement. And I mean, it's not one of those things where you make $1 million. It's like anything in the music business. You have to do like 30 things to try and make a living.
Yeah.
And but it's just one thing. And then music gets played, and it's kind of fun. I get a lot of comments from band directors, and I got a lot of friends all over the country now that I didn't know, but they're playing the charts, and it's kind of exciting. One guy said, I got a thing yesterday. He goes, he says, yes, we played a concert and we had a documentary of you for at the beginning. I go, that's great. And then they played all my charts, and that was great. And he said, yeah, documentary was 4 minutes. I'm going, that's about right. That's probably all I got.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny and it's not funny.
I know.
So were you ever kind of more of a solo player, or was it really just about the arranging and big band?
No, I really started out trying to be the world's fastest saxophone player. That was my job.
Did it work?
Yeah, I was good for a while. There was a guy named Sal Nistico, who was like this incredibly amazing tenor player with Woody Herman's band, who could play faster than Mario Andretti. But yeah, I was really good at playing speedily and that stuff. So I wanted to do that, but there was always this thing, this feeling like that I could do more writing. And I had a good friend of mine, a guy named Alan Remington, who very few people know. But Alan said, he looked at me when I was very young, like probably like maybe 20, and he goes, "You're going to write. That's what you're going to do." And I was doing nothing but playing at that time. I mean, a lot. And he goes, "That's what you're going to do." And it turned out he was correct. That's what I enjoy doing. I mean, there are times when I get up at 5 a.m. when there's nothing going on, and just write an arrangement, boom, and then record it. And then I have it. Then I've given birth to this thing that'll kind of last forever, and it's so exciting. It's just thrilling. And then they have like guys like Wayne Bergeron and my whole band. I mean, I just name them all. Wayne comes to mind because he's Wayne Bergeron. But I mean, all these guys are like just artists in their own right. To be able to, it's like great actors playing your script. It's just frightening, how wonderful it sounds.
Let's listen to something actually.
There's some stuff on the internet of this album, by the way, which is my new album. I think it's on. There's some stuff on the internet somewhere. I say the internet. It's not like an old man. The Tom Kubis Big Band. It's called "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
All right, let's see. It might be on your
It
on
wouldn't be on
your
my page. I think it's just on YouTube.
Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Okay.
In fact, yeah, do Take Me Out to the Ball Game on YouTube, Tom Kubis, and you could play that. There we
Okay,
are.
great. Would this, I just like videos, but I mean, would this be the same chart?
What does that say there? I'm having
Take Me Out to
difficulty.
the Ball Game 3 years ago.
No, that's probably something at a club. That might not be a very good recording.
Okay, what song would you like me to play?
Take Me Out to the Ball Game, the one up on top there. That would be
Okay,
good.
cool.
Well, no, we'll just invent pictures in our mind.
It's time
Okay.
for baseball.
Yeah, man.
There you go. That was
really great.
Brian Williams playing baritone on that, and Jim Cox on piano.
Jim
And
Cox.
yeah,
You know, I mean, everybody plays their ass off, but the trumpet section is so gorgeous.
it's Wayne Bergeron,
Yes.
Gary Holopoff, Stan Martin, Jeff Bennell, and Ron Stout was our guest. I never do an album without having Ron Stout stop by. And he's not a member of the band. We've known him forever, but he was never an official member. But he's there, so often. But he's always got to be on the album somehow. But that trumpet section is it's stunning.
It is really gorgeous. Wow.
Yeah. But the trombone, the trombone
sparkling.
section, this is hilarious. Andy Martin, Alex Isles, Charlie Merlis, and Rich Bullock. I mean, those guys are, the absolute, the best there are, anywhere. They're just terrific players. And the experience, oh gosh, it's just incredible.
Yeah. I have a question, but I'm not sure. He said, "Do you arrange charts for other musicians?" I guess maybe.
Yeah, I would do that upon occasion. Arrange stuff for commissions for schools. Sometimes they want that, and then and do vocal charts for people, and that I do that. But I've actually kind of stopped doing that now. Kind of I'm involved with a couple projects with Trey Henry and the magnificent bass player Ray Brinker is this incredible drummer, and Sal Lozano, the lead alto player, and Wayne. We're doing this thing called Atticat, and we're putting together music that it's kind of a music minus one kind of a thing, but with these kinds of arrangements, these stellar arrangements. And so I've been kind of involved in that. So I'm not taking any really work outside of that, and I probably won't anymore since we're kind of working on that stuff.
Yeah. I'm going to play something else because I just have to get something, and I don't want you just sitting here. So I'm going to, I have to get something, and but let's see, maybe this is from 2 years ago. How about this?
Okay.
Is this cool? At the LA Jazz Institute, Best from the West.
Could be.
I'm sure, nothing.
There's so many of these. I don't put these up there. There's so many of these that people put, so I never know. I never know what to expect.
Okay, well, this is a long concert, but we would just watch, maybe the beginning. Yeah. Let's see. You're still talking. I think
that would be me.
Yeah.
I talk too much. At that point, Sal starts playing to cover me up.
Let's see. I'm looking. Here we go.
Just a little something I heard walking down the hallway in the morning. So just a little fun.
Okay, I'll be right back. Speaking of Ron Stout.
There it is. Got around.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I missed what what that song was.
You know, I can't remember. I have many of those. Yeah, it was funny. Those tunes, that whole genre of like, which is kind of like they're pretty tunes,
Yeah.
and kind of away from like a John Coltrane tune or something like that, you know. And that was because I was such a big fan of Chuck Mangione, you know, that
Oh, okay.
it was just his melodic ideas
Yeah.
were just like absolutely perfect, and the way he went for notes and whatever. And so that was kind of a kind of a thing that I always enjoyed doing. And the first couple I wrote, there was one called Somebody's Got to Do It, which is kind of the first one I wrote like that, thinking, is this going to work? Because everybody wants to hear like these crazy chords, Brookmeyer, this crunchy chords and all this stuff. Is this going to work as like a nice tune with triads in it? You know, it's like some people hate triads, you know.
Yeah.
And I started doing them, and because I had an affinity for kind of writing those things, and they all turned out so great. And that's one of them. And I can't remember I can't remember the name of it. I have many of those.
That's pretty. Yeah, and it does
Yeah.
kind of remind me of Chuck Mangione.
Oh, very much so.
Pretty.
Yeah.
And in that little video, I happened to see Pinky Winters right there. She I know she was helping during that period, that
Right.
event. She walked in and sat down right in front.
She got herself in the picture.
Now, Mark, you could probably email Tom for this, but he's asking. He's the guy who asked if you arrange charts for other musicians. He said, "Can you recommend somebody? I have a recording project that I'm working on."
I would recommend that there's this I call him a kid because he's a kid. This is a new kid on the block, and his name is Kyle Myers, Meyers, and he's got all of our stamp of approval. He just started his own band. I got him to start his own band. I got him to open up for us at the Gas Lamp, and he is truly. I would definitely recommend him. Plus, he does good strings as well. I mean, he can write for any ensemble. He's more versatile than I am. But he's a kid. But man, can he write? That would be the most perfect. And he can swing. He can do all the cool stuff. He's a great cat, and he's really easy to work with. Just absolutely terrific. You know,
Cool.
very humble cat.
I have a question that I've thought about over the years. And I guess it's forefront on my mind because I'm actually taking a piano class now.
Mm, yeah,
And my piano playing is, it's okay for accompanying, but it's nothing. It's not even my own standards.
yeah.
But anyway, so I discovered that I'm playing like swing eighth notes, emphasizing the one instead of the two, or the downbeat instead of the upbeat.
Yeah.
And that's something I've noticed over the years, from different players and from my own singing and from other people listening to other people. There are some people who have this sense of swing that really is a do va do da do da do, and then
Mhm.
some people kind of like, I like listening to the trumpet player who we just were listening to,
Oh yeah, Ron. Yeah.
Ron. He seemed very even, like on
Hmm.
the eighth notes. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I always wondered about that. Like, is it, does it matter? Is it hip? I mean, you're coming from where you're coming from. Do you have to swing, or like Charlie Hayden kind of played evenly as well, just to think of somebody.
Well, that last tune, first of all, was a samba, so that would be straight eights anyway. So that's not a duba. It's not doobie doobie duba.
Okay.
It's not that at all. So that's why you hear Ron playing when he plays his. Ron is like one of the world's greatest trumpet players ever. He's just finally people are starting to transcribe his solos, and they're like, that's like impossible stuff. But the swing feel is I always I wanted to be a piano player for a while. I had these wannabe things. I wanted to be a flute player for a while. I wanted to be a piano player for a while. I wanted to be a trumpet player for a while. And I wanted to do all these things. And so I really kind of got into the piano. And thank heavens I did, because, so much is done on the keyboards
Yeah.
now. And developing that swing feel is ridiculously hard. I mean, first of all, the piano ergonomically is such a funny instrument. It's just there's three keys over here. Now there's two black keys over here, and then you're kind of making it all kind of work. Oscar Peterson had this most amazing swing feel, and I grew up kind of my guy that we still pal around or talk to each other quite a bit is Tom Renier, and
Yeah.
and Tommy was another guy who just had this amazing, stunning swing feel, and you almost you sit down, you try and analyze it, and sometimes it's hard to analyze it, and sometimes it's not just the upbeat being more accented. It may have to do with how long each note is held. There might be a certain amount of space in between those notes as well, that give it that feeling of like, plus the upbeat and a little bit of space in between it, not staccato necessarily, but somewhere in the middle, that gives it that kind of magic, that thing. And then there are some people who just have that thing where they start playing and you go, that's it. Renier was always the guy for me. He just had it, and he just had that amazing, it just it swang so hard. It's like, oh God, I want that, please. Whatever pill that is, I'm taking it. But it has to do with more it's obviously the upbeat thing. And then there's some guys who were really good at playing. Tom is a very light player, and then there's some guys who play really hard, and that's harder to make swing, because if you start pounding on the piano, it doesn't swing as hard. So you really have to force yourself to back off a bit. But there are some guys who can play really hard and swing their butts off. So it's a mystical thing. It truly is a mystical thing. It's like anything else. You find the person that you want to sound like, and you just keep playing that CD or that download or that record or whatever you got, or your 45 or your 78. Keep playing it over and over and over again until it gets drilled in your brain, and you'll start hearing that, and that may affect how you play.
Yeah. And obviously it's a little different with woodwind players, but still it's the same premise.
It's the same thing. It's the same.
Yeah.
You're tonguing, so that space that you have you have to be tonguing, and there is that thing of where you are accenting the upbeat as well, and maybe with a little tiny bit of space, and maybe with a little accent. depending on how you use your tongue. Some people don't use their tongue very much. Other people like Sal Nistico. He was just like, his tongue was like a snake, and the Lockjaw Dave was the same way. Just like they just could do these incredible lines, and they just swang their butts off.
No, I don't know why, but I just never have thought about the use of the tongue for sax players.
Yes. Yeah. There's when I was trying to be the speediest guy, I had my tongue, and it would actually literally stop the reed. And so that would create the, instead of tonguing, I just have it up there where it would just kind of stop it, and then would create a little bit of a space. And that would give it, it gives it more of an energy when you play, rather than legato where everything's like blah, 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 blah. When there's a tick, 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 it's that kind of feeling on it. Then the horn, sparkle a little bit more, and the solo would sparkle a little bit more. And that's when I was in really good shape. But that's like Olympic stuff. You get to that point, and you can do that, and Clifford and all those cats, they did this, and it was, that's the way they were.
Yeah, I know that Bob McChesney has some kind of tonguing thing that he does that he's known for, but I think trombone is like one of the hardest instruments I've ever understood, and then to add that, he has this whole tonguing thing.
Yeah, that as well. I think one of the greatest lessons I had, Alex Isles used to come down here, and we do, I used to call it Lunch with Alex, which I actually have an arrangement called Lunch with Alex.
Oh.
And he would come down, and we do a lot of talking, and we talk about the trombone, and it just, it's a fascinating, in some ways it's kind of like the guitar. You have the limitations, and you have to work around them, and there's interesting ways of doing that, and all kinds of fascinating things he would show me. And it was like, wow, man, I wish I had this guy when I was at Long Beach State, just teaching these classes, because it was fascinating, just to see all the weird things that the trombone can do. It's just a strange instrument,
Yeah, it is a strange instrument.
Yeah.
I remember realizing, like, when they said, from here, then the next note is here. I mean,
Yeah.
What? That just by itself is like weird.
There's ways around that too. So.
Oh my God. So
yeah, Carl Fontana, one of those guys who was like real close and played a lot of stuff like this. And Bill Watrous was the same way. He was like just amazing. One
of my favorites was Frank Rosolino. I think he was one of the most beautiful players ever.
Yeah. I got to play with him a little bit when I was younger.
He was so good, and not to mention his singing.
Yeah, singing.
What a character! Of course, we're all characters. But so I have a young man on here who's he's at North Texas State and North Texas State, whatever university. I don't know, Taylor, whatever. Taylor Hatch. He's a guitarist, and he asks fantastic questions. And so. Here you go. First of all, he said Kyle is a friend of his.
Oh, great. Yes. Yeah. Kyle was down there for quite some time. Yeah.
Yeah. And he also has your standards book of arrangements when he played in a jazz quartet back home.
Oh, yeah.
Which was on the West Coast. Okay. So 2 questions. One is, when you begin to arrange a piece, how do you go about harmonizing saxes if a tune requires you to keep the ranges within what the melody is?
Well, one of the things, if I'm writing, at that point, I'm let's say that I'm starting the piece with the melody at that point. So my first thing would be to go, well, at that point, if it doesn't match it, I'm changing the key so that it does match. So, whatever the tune might be, you're not beholden necessarily to keys. So if it's like My One and Only Love or whatever, you just change it so that it fits within, and you're looking at it like, he's probably thinking, you're looking at 2 things. You're looking at the range that the lead part is in, but you're also thinking about the parts underneath, that there's got to be room to be able to have parts underneath without them getting too low or whatever. So I think about that. I think about, well, okay, then I'll raise it up a fourth, or this tune is not going to be up a fourth or whatever. And so that's how I would do that. And then I think about which voicing I would use. I use basically, Taylor?
Taylor, yep.
Taylor, I use 2 voicings. There's basically 3. I have one the easiest one is the bassy one. They probably teach it in North Texas, where the lead alto and the baritone are doubling the melody. The baritone's an octave lower, and everybody's scrunched up in between. That's a real classic style. It sounds great, which means that you can write the melody lower because it's a scrunched up thing. I write in fourths, so if my melody, if it's like a C chord, like a C6/9 chord, 6/9 chord, something, I would put a C on the top, and then I have a G. I'm writing in fourths now. G underneath that, a D underneath that, an A underneath that, an E underneath that. And so I would have this big open, gigantic open voicing. And that's how I write. Now, at that point, I have to write the melody high enough to be able to make sure that the baritone isn't like, picking himself up off the floor or whatever. And so I have to change the key. But you can kind of go back and forth. There's one that's in the middle where it's like a drop 2 or something like that, where the voicing is just a little bit open. But I write my saxophones way open, basically in fourths, and it really works great, and especially with soprano lead. Oh my gosh, that's it's incredible.
Ah, cool. Okay, next, how do you go about orchestration when you're trying to apply blend to how you want a big band to sound? Let's say on a ballad.
I'm not sure the question. Apply blend.
Yeah, how do you go about orchestration when you are trying to apply blend to how you want a big band to sound, like on a ballad?
Like on a ballad. First of all, if I do a ballad, I'm usually, at least the way I do it. So you're talking, I'm going to come at from my end of it. In the old days, a ballad was, a section would play the melody, and it was like the Glenn Miller thing or whatever. Now, I specifically, if it's a ballad, it's somebody's being featured, period. And so it's going to be a trumpet player, it's going to be a saxophone player, and so it's going to be some kind of soloist. At that point, your job is kind of to stay away from the area that the soloist is in. If it's a trumpet player, he's probably going to be playing in the staff. It's got a nice little ballad range, not too high, not too low. So then your parts that are going to blend in underneath him are going to be underneath him. Or if he stops playing, then you fill something in the same range. But for the most part, then it would be kind of underneath him. I do some things where if somebody's playing the melody and it's just in the right spot, I can put like flugelhorns playing unison just above him, like a little string line, which is kind of cool to do as well. But generally, if it's somebody playing a ballad, then I'm trying to fill in underneath that particular person. Or when they stop playing, when there's a break in their phrasing, then I can play something in that same range and then get out of their way. It's kind of, it always works.
Okay, cool. What was the biggest piece of advice anyone gave you, I guess, when it came to finding your own voice as an arranger?
I wish I'd have gotten that advice. I didn't get it. It was not given to me. And I kind of went so many years of not knowing what my voice was. And I was just writing. Or I would hear, I think a lot of us go through this, you hear the Count Basie band, you hear, well, the big one for all of us, I think when I was growing up, was the Thad Jones band. Hey, we got to write like Thad Jones. That's what we got to do. So what was their voicings? So you try and figure that out. The part that they didn't tell you about with the Thad Jones stuff is like, where did he get his melodic lines? And the melodic lines goes back to the thing that I was telling you, where these people you grow up with, these different musicians, maybe the squirrely alto player that he grew up with or whatever, who just played kind of weird, but he grew up with them and he knew those lines, and so he could create those melodies or whatever. It's hard to say where that came from. Yeah. It's easy to find what the voicings are, but it's very difficult to find where those lead lines are, that was what kind of separated him from a lot of people. He had some crunchy voicings which were good. He broke up the old Glenn Miller stuff, the old big band stuff, and what was the question again? I want to finish it, but
advice, biggest piece of advice.
Biggest piece of advice. I wish I'd have known. I was writing stuff, and it was stuff that came into my head, and there was a lot of stuff that was inspired by people that I played with, but I never really found what I felt was a voice, me, whatever that was, the heart or whatever. And I don't think I found that until probably in the last, maybe the last 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I've written a lot of stuff but finding something that is really close to your heart, I guess that's a word for it, you know, that
Yeah.
where you listen to it and you go, oh, there we go, you know, because I could always create wonderful stuff, and especially for other people, and I always thought it was wonderful stuff, but where you listen to it and you go, there we go, there's that moment, you know, that you're looking for, and that wasn't until later. And I wish somebody would have told me that you really, you know, you can imitate all the people that you want, but trying to find out who you actually are and the stuff that really makes you, you're not, so as long as you're not writing, try not to write for other people. I hope they think that this sounds great. You know, that's, you want to get past that. You have to get past it. And sometimes that's very difficult to do because you feel you have to fit in to what the norms are for those particular people. But trying to find something that is actually you is, you know, I guess it's probably like writing a novel or whatever. It's I think it's a lifelong experience personally. And I'll probably be better at it at 80, you know.
Do you have an idea of the steps that you take to find yourself?
I don't know. I said, well, I know it sounds like a psychology class.
It is.
Yeah, it is a psychology class. I don't know. I can't give you a good answer for that, but I think that's kind of what we're all in search of. You know, you can create a great arrangement, but is it really great? You know, is it great for you? Is it not just great for, you know, hey, everybody thinks I sound great. You know, it's hard to find that spot within yourself, you know.
Taylor, wasn't this what we were talking about the other day? Yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, and it is a psychology class, philosophy, psychology. It's all, well, it's a head trip.
It's what being an artist is, artistry, you know, and there's some people who die for their art, you know, right off the bat in their 30s or 20s or whatever, you know, get so consumed by trying to find that. And that's, you know, it's just, I guess we're all involved, whether you're dancing or whether you're creating statues or, you know, what is you is a big one.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see what his next question is. Can you talk about applying drip voicings? I've never heard that.
Never heard it.
Oh, okay. You're going to have to talk about what drip voicings are, Taylor. When applied to trombone sections, do you like using four-way close voicings as a way to harmonize the brass?
Actually, it's a great question. The trombones, I over the years thought, you know, let's open the trombones up when they're playing a soli, and we'll do it like an open 4-part voicing. So like you know, it's greater than an octave, I guess is the word for it. That was the span. They used to call it the span, and I had mixed results with that, and I finally got to the point where I would do a lot more just 4-part closed. It just seems that the bones just sparkle when that you use that voicing if you use it correctly. You know, it's nice to use. You know, you use kind of more. You know, like if you got a major 7th chord, like an E flat major 7th chord, like somewhere there's like a half step, like the D and the E flat, you know, together, rather than using the 6th, use the major 7th. There's something that's a little closer harmony, just to make it sparkle. So I've gotten away a little bit in the last few years of like, if I'm doing a trombone thing, maybe I'll open it up a little bit, but boy, when I want it to sparkle, sometimes it just an open voicing just doesn't have that punch that you want. Trombones can just sound so beautiful when they're just like right all together and just like banging it out. It's just absolutely terrific.
Cool.
And there's probably 10 arrangers who will disagree with me immediately. That's the great thing about the internet. You know, you're wrong.
So true.
Yeah.
So Mark Baldrige, he's the person who wanted to have a referral. He said, with singers, you can't change the key. So how do you get around arranging for saxes if you cannot change the key?
Yeah, he's probably a tenor voice. So it'd be like having either a tenor saxophone or a trombone play the melody. And so a lot of times with like a melodic line, if somebody's like singing, sometimes like a unison thing, like maybe like I do a thing. I since I wrote this chart When You're Smiling a long time ago, I had this thing where I had the two tenors and baritone kind of playing off by themselves while the band's doing another thing, and I kind of keep using that even with like a vocalist. So it's kind of like this cello line that's maybe underneath the vocalist. And I think if you're very careful, and I always put for those range, I always put the melody on the top of my score so I can see what note they're singing, so that if I put a note in, if I'm gonna play in the same range, and it does happen where you do that with saxophones or whatever, I'm always making sure that the note that the vocalist is singing is not interfering with, hey, this is a great voicing. The problem is that note interferes with the vocalist. So I always go through and try and patchwork and make sure that works, so that there's not a problem. I had no trouble with Jack Sheldon. We did several albums together, and Jack would sing the exact melody in his own inimitable way. And so then I could go, then I put the melody up, and I knew he was going to sing that. And then at that point, then I'm going, okay, I can build around this, but I have to make sure that melody is there, so that when he sings it, that somebody's not interfering. So, I mean, there's ways of doing it.
Speaking of Jack Sheldon, let's and all this stuff. Let's do something. Is this any of these jump out at you?
Is there, play it again, Sam? That one on the bottom there. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, now I just have to say about Jack Sheldon, maybe some people listening really weren't familiar with Jack Sheldon. Jack Sheldon was a character, huge character, and played trumpet and sang. He kind of got famous for playing and singing on the Mike Douglas show.
Yeah.
Right?
Plus, I'm a Bill. That's his voice on the Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock. Yeah.
That was all him.
Yeah. He did commercials, and he was just a character. I remember when I was working at Dante's, and he worked a lot there then, and he would bring his son in there to oh, this is the video. Wait. Oh, no, it's not. Okay.
Oh.
This is the recording, but just with a picture, I guess.
Yeah.
If she can take it, so can I. Play it again, Sam. Play it again, Sam. Yes, that's the tune, the crazy tune I long to hear. I've got a memory, a lovely memory, and when I hear it, all my cares just disappear. It tells me that the time is right for you and me to get together. It's been a dream, a crazy dream I've always had. It's not a great song, an out-of-date song, but in its way, it makes my day, so play it again. Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she had to walk into mine. I remember the last time I saw her in Paris. She wore blue, the Germans wore gray. Ah, Sam, I was supposed to meet her at the train station. She didn't show. So I moved to Casablanca and opened up this joint. I call it Rick's. I met Peter Lorre. He introduced me to Claude Rains. And we met a German guy who was, a pain in the neck, but he was nice, though, besides that. Then they walked into my club, Victor Laszlo and her. Here's to you, kid. I'll always remember that outfit. What a girl. I had the letters of transit. They wanted them. But I wouldn't give them to them. But then at the last minute, at the plane, I was going to leave with her, but I said, in a crazy world like this, the troubles of three people don't amount to a hill of beans. And I figured that she'd be better off going with Victor, and I would just hang out with Claude. So that's the way it ended. It tells me that the time is right for you and me to get together. It's been a dream, a crazy dream I've always had. It's not a great tune, an out-of-date tune, but in its way it makes my day. So play it
Love it. Love it. I was very impressed with his singing. He used to, he sang with Ross Tompkins,
All time.
yeah. And of course they made several records together that were just great. I was very impressed with his singing.
Well, a lot of people don't realize this because Jack he's just this kind of free spirit, and you go, this guy just wakes up in the morning. He just kind of naturally does this stuff. But he would take vocal lessons. He would practice trumpet every day for at least 5 hours. I know this because I would make practice tapes for him, like of stuff that we did with his big band. And then he often talked about his vocal coaches, and I know he put in at least 2 hours a day on vocals. I mean, his whole day was practicing. That's what he did, and it shows up. I mean, it really does, but it shows up in such a unique way that you don't think he's like a practicing kind of guy. But he had an incredible range on his on trumpet and down to the bottom, and then plus he had this talk about the heart. He had this unique ability to play one note and you just melt, on his horn. But yeah, he was very conscientious about all of his stuff, pitch, singing, phrasing, everything. It was a big deal to him.
I didn't know some of that. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I thought highly of his singing, and but I didn't realize he put that much work in on the singing as well.
Tons. Yes.
It's
Yeah.
I always thought, well, he plays trumpet so great and he brings that over to the singing because there's similarities that, you can use.
Yeah.
And I know he used to play on Venice Beach,
Yeah.
just on the
Yeah.
boardwalk there,
He would come down, he would come down here and just hang out and play. And we started doing an album project, never quite got it done. I actually have lost tapes of him,
Oh,
things that nobody's ever heard.
wow.
When he would just come down and hang out, but he was and he'd play with when I was teaching, he'd come down and play with my band on Mondays, and he'd make the drive down. And then Steve Allen loved him, and so Steve, we did some concerts with Steve Allen and Jack, and he was one of a kind. He was just wonderful and sharp as a tack, man. He was just so fast and so funny, just amazing. We sit around, those of us who were in the band kind of in the heyday, and just say the punchlines to the jokes, and just start like laughing. It's like the old joke, just saying the punchlines. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, some of those guys were. It was almost like an old style or something. Nick
was.
Ceroli was one of the funniest guys ever. Not a great drummer, but he was just. It would just like come out of his mouth. It was
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
I was always amazed at that because that was when I was a waitress at Dante's. Nick Ceroli was there a lot. I just
Yeah.
like, wow, this is incredible. Taylor wants to know, out of all the pieces you've written, which one was fun to write and which one was the most challenging to finish?
Oh man. Well, we figured, my son kind of figured out I've written about 20,000 of these things. So it's hard to think of
One.
one. What was
It doesn't have to be the only one. It could be one.
Yeah. What was the most fun to write? There's a new chart called there's one called Kerfuffled, and then there's one Wayne just recorded it too. I can't think of the name of it. Darn it! It was a minor tune, and it was all he would know what this was. It was all closed voicing, and so like the trumpets had a closed voicing, then the trombones doubled that down an octave, and the saxophones kind of had a similar kind of thing down below. And it was all minor sixth chords, and it was just this romping, stomping thing, and it had an organ behind it, and it's kind of this like old kind of timey funk thing, and that thing was that is so fun. The hardest one though. The hardest thing. The hardest one I had to do was on the corner of East Brecker and West Golson. And it's a chart that I did for Los Alamitos High School. And it's like a Brecker tune that turns into a Benny Golson tune.
Wow.
And that was harder than all get out to do, because it just went out there. It was so different than anything I'd ever done. So that's one. That's actually, I'm going to put that up on the website. It's freaking amazing. It's wonderful. But when I was at Long Beach State, Chick Corea was just starting to get going. So I did every Chick Corea album tune off his albums that I could for big band. And then I did the first two Brecker Brothers albums. And those were hard because I didn't know how to write that way for big band. You could write that way for three horns, but trying to turn that into a big band thing. But I took the time to do that. I went nuts. That was a lot of fun.
Wow. I'd like to hear that. I'm a big Brecker fan.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I tried to really stay true to what they did.
Yeah.
And, but make it work with that, that size group.
Yeah. Taylor also wants to know, what's your arranging pet peeve?
That's a funny one.
It is a funny question.
Watch any Hallmark movie. how bad the big band sounds to try and make. That's my pet peeve is like those guys are trying to make, who just don't know what they're doing, and then they're trying to do something, and it always winds up in a Hallmark movie where they're trying to do some kind of scene where there's a big band and people are dancing, and it's horrible. It's like half of it's synthesizer, bad synthesizer, and then half of it's a bunch of guys who just, I don't know, they must be somebody's brother or whatever. That's my that one is always a funny one. I do have this thing where it's sometimes very difficult for me to listen to somebody. So this is kind of an odd thing, but a lot of I'll put on some of the jazz stations or whatever, and I'll hear a big band chart kind of going by, and I'll go, oh man, oh, okay, that was okay, and then I have to turn it off because my brain remembers crap, and then it's stuck in there, and I go, oh man, I wish I hadn't heard that. I just. And fortunately, a Gordon Goodwin chart will come on or something, and I'll go, okay, that's better. I got it. Thank you, save me. But sometimes I'll hear somebody's chart and I go, oh darn it. Oh well.
I have this thing where I'm a pretty good-natured person, and I have a very high tolerance level. But I have discovered one thing that I do not have tolerance for is listening to a musician or a singer who I feel is not respecting the music or the musicians, you know, kind of honoring the whole process. And I mean, I have been known to just freak out watching somebody, and I finally learned I have to leave when that happens because I get weird. I almost like get like Tourette syndrome or something, you know? Yeah. Do you ever like get really
I watched the
pissed off?
show. I watched the show just recently, and they had it was one of those shows, you know, where they have four judges and
Oh yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and anyway, so they had a singer come out and sing a tune, a standard, and this particular singer had all these great runs, you know, but it was a standard, and at no point was the melody ever represented. It wasn't that it just wasn't. It just started on the wrong note and then made a run. All the notes were right, you know, and it was 32 bars went by and there wasn't, you know, and the lyrics were there, but it was all this other stuff. And I'm going, well, somebody's going to have to say something about that. And all the judges went, oh, that was incredible. And I went, oh no, oh no. You know, and like you can't do that to like a Bergman tune or something. Boy, they would scream
Oh God.
bloody murder. You cannot start messing around with that stuff.
You
It's
know,
just
that I
horrible.
have a fine line with that with teaching because you know of course a lot of the younger singers have those runs, right? And they're so and part of what they do. And I don't want to stop them from their own path, but I also want the ethics of these, I guess you could call it ethics of, you know, the true song and the true art form to be in there. So it's a really interesting line.
Jack Sheldon, for all that he did and how crazy and wacky and his wonderful sense of humor was, the one thing I did notice, and actually was brought up to me, and they said, you know, Jack Sheldon, he sings the melody. He sings the
He
exact melody.
does, definitely.
And that's interesting because when you write melodies or you write a standard or whatever, or you try and write a standard where, you know, the difference of like one note, you know, I chose this note as to getting to this note, you know, and it could have been this note, but it was not that note. It was this note because I felt that, and that's, it's an important thing. It really is an important thing. But, you know, so much of this is getting lost in what everybody thinks music is now. You know, it's all kind of a different boat. So, you know, I feel like the old guy going, hey, sing the melody, you know, and
Yeah.
but I don't know where it's going to go from here, if somebody's going to actually go back and do that, or it's just going to get runnier and runnier.
I know. Well, the word nowadays, you know, that's on everybody's lips is authenticity or transparency, you
Yeah.
know, and that's true. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like, yeah, as a teacher, I have to really look at that and say, okay, is this really authentic or, you know, or the other side of it? But yeah, I mean, you're right. Especially like, I have these songs, little standards that I call little jewels. They're short. They're like, I'll be around. That's one, you know, they're just, it's almost simple, but it's absolutely perfect, you know, just a gorgeous song. And how could you change that song to make it any better? You couldn't really. You
Yeah.
know, from the chords, the melody, and the lyrics, you know, it's all really quite beautiful.
Well, melodies for any, even writing a big band chart or writing, you know, or any size chart, the melodies are so important, and they deserve to be well thought out and well crafted. That craftiness of writing a great melody is the secret to writing a great chart, or, you know, it's a magical thing. Some people have no ability to even create a melody, which is, you know, and that makes writing very difficult. But that ability to create the melody, and you say, well, I was going to use that note, but it's now going to be this note because this note actually is slightly better than this note. You know, those just little minute things make an arrangement just like totally come to life. Just those little tiny small things like that.
Yeah. Well, that actually goes into a question from Mark. What makes a chart good? Go ahead.
Well,
I dare you to answer that.
you've got three things that you're dealing with. You have an audience.
Yeah.
You have the person who's, if they're singing it, you have that person. Then you have the band, as to what's going on there. So, I mean, if the chart's good, then at least for the band wise, it means that it fit into all the things, the baritone wasn't too low, or it wasn't, this voicing wasn't too crazy, or it didn't get too high and you're killing trumpet players. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that fits into making the band feel comfortable. So that's one thing. And then trying to relate whatever that was to the audience, that's sometimes the hardest part, where you're trying to create something that will create an emotion out of the audience. And I think it's a common. And then you're trying to make the singer feel comfortable within what they do, if it's a singer or whatever, or a soloist or whatever, but comfortable in what they do. So you have these three things kind of going, that all at once, and it does get a little complex, because you might do something that the band loves, but the people are going, well, what was that? Or you do something that the people love and the band's going, man, that was ridiculous. I can't play that. There is that, where you do something and it got things, and then the poor vocalist is stuck out in the middle of like nowhere, and you didn't help anybody out or whatever. So yeah, it's the combination of all those things to make it work. So I think there's no substitute for knowing show business. Understanding. You were talking about the sense of humor that the drummer had, or whatever. There's a thing about knowing showbiz, knowing vaudeville, knowing jokes, knowing people, knowing how to relate to people. That was all part of show business. What is show business? It's this relatable thing that people, if it's good, people understand it. And I think there's something to be said for having a little bit of showbiz in your veins.
Da, 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 da.
Okay,
Sorry. I couldn't help that. Taylor wants to know, what was one big band record that changed your life, and why did it influence you to write for large ensembles?
Terry Gibbs, Live at the Summit. That Sweet Georgia Brown is on that one, and that album in particular, and particularly Sweet Georgia Brown, because Sweet Georgia Brown, and I've told this story to Terry a billion times. Fortunately, he was working with Steve Allen, and that's how I got to know him a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And but they did Sweet Georgia Brown, and that particular chart has got a lot of notes in it, and it was the first time I'd heard a big band actually having to play like bebop lines that were all voiced out. Everything up to that point is that it's all voiced out, but this is going. It's got all this stuff that's going crazy, and I heard that, and I'm going, that I didn't even know that was possible. That all these people could be like flowing like that. That would be just totally amazing. I wore that album out, and plus there's a whole bunch of other stuff on there that is every chart on that particular album is stunning, and that. When I heard that, Mel Lewis, I think, is on drums on that. And when I heard that, and it was always it was a previous era, a couple of years before me. So it was all these guys who were like, the gods of that era, the 50s and 60s and stuff. Yeah. And man, that album still, that's it. My hair goes up on the back of my neck when I hear it. It's that good. The solos are great. The solo stuff and it's recorded flawlessly. And that changed everything for me. It was like, wait a minute, when Thad came out, Central Park North, that was like, we heard that for the first time at Orange Coast College, and everyone went, whoa, where'd that come from? There's voicings that we never thought existed. And it's an offshoot for those people who weren't around during that time when that album came out. We started using those voicings, the score. He'd always send the score out, which is kind of cool. You look at the score and see what he was doing, what Thad was doing. So we're stealing this voicing, doing this. He started using those voicings, and what would happen on gigs, this is hilarious, rehearsals, you bring in a chart and you use those voicings. And if people weren't used to playing Thad Jones charts, they'd all be playing these like gritty things where you're real close to the guy next to you with, this guy's got a second away, and people would be raising their hand going, I think I got it wrong note. And this happened. They say, this is a wrong note. And nobody was used to Thad. And then any of the Buddy Rich albums, Big Swing Face, I think, was probably the one that changed, again, my life a little bit, because Buddy that band was so good. It was just so hard swinging. It was just amazing. But the Terry Gibbs band that's closest to, the thing that just went, okay, things are different now,
Yeah. So speaking of now, like what are you doing now with yourself?
So there's a couple things I'm involved in with Sal Lozano, Ray Brinkert, Trey Henry, Andy Martin, and Wayne Bergeron. It's an app, or it's actually there's an app called the Wayne B Play Along app, and we're doing music for that. And also there's a thing called Adacat, and that's you can get that on your, like, it works on your Mac. And Adacat is kind of a play along thing as well. So it's like music minus one, like in the old days, except updated to some really amazing recordings and stuff. So I've been involved in that. And then I get into this thing where I start writing charts like every day, write a new one, just boom, get up in the morning and do that. I stopped for this last week as I was driving myself nuts, but I get up in the morning and just write one and then write another one the next day, write another
How
one.
long does it take you?
I can usually get a chart. If I get up like at 7, I can get a chart done by like maybe 10, and then start recording it in Logic. And I got my little robo band. That's some of those things that are on my site, by the way, on my YouTube thing. And it's made up of, it's breath controlled instruments or whatever. And it makes a good demo. It's not as good as having the real cats, but it's just fun. But I always was a writer. I was always where I would write, and a lot of times in the old days, I didn't even care if it got copied or even if it got played. I just enjoyed writing, and I'd have stacks of scores like this that were, I couldn't afford to get them copied, and they would just sit, and then I'd go on and write another one. I love to write for the sake of writing. That's one thing that was kind of given to me that I love.
And it's how much of that do you compose actually, as far as the song itself?
All of them now.
Oh, wow.
I went through kind of a standards thing for a while, but you can't sell standards. They don't. You have to get license, and licensing is extremely difficult. So
Yeah.
I just write my own stuff and happy to do it. But again, I came from a melodic area like Dixieland or whatever, and so melodies were kind of second nature. I always had to I was playing clarinet in like at Disneyland, and playing a melody around the trumpet or playing a melody around what the trombone was doing. So I was always playing melodies. And so I'm just so used to hearing this melodic content, and it just, it's just in there. And so that I can use that to create the charts. So
Yeah. Wow.
that's a second nature thing.
Yeah. Do you think I would curious to hear one of the things that with a singer, do you think there's
Well, you heard the one with Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
I think those are the ones, unless there's one with Dewey, but all the ones for Jack are the ones kind of that are, I think, on YouTube or whatever.
Oh, you mentioned When You're Smiling. Is this the one that you were talking about before?
When You're Smiling is that's off that album, the Slightly Off the Ground album. Yeah, that was an interesting arrangement. Everybody has it. I mean, it's just like the amount of people that own that arrangement is stunning, and it was a arrangement like it wasn't anything special. It was I had gotten off the road. And for those people who've been on the road, the first thing that happens is when you get back off the road, nobody knows that you're back off the road. So there's nobody calling you, And so I was kind of involved in that. I'd been on the road for a couple of years. And so there was no Kubis back in town. And so this friend of mine, a guy named Ansel Hill, who had a band, he says, look, I'll give you $200 for every standard you write for my band. This is years ago. It's back in the 70s, And I go, okay. So I wrote, Bye Bye Blackbird and When You're Smiling and Who Can I Turn To, all these standards. And for some reason, when you're smiling, started catching on, and it's whether it's written that's more playable or whatever, it started catching on, and everybody started buying it or it started performing it. So it was like at festivals and stuff like that. And that's the one thing I get from. Oh, in fact, my kids are sick of hearing this. They'll say their last name and they go, "Oh, your dad, didn't he write When You're Smiling?" And they go, "Yeah."
Okay, well, I'm going to hear something. So, should I do the recorded version or a live version?
Do the recorded version. I think that's interesting because there's some great players on there. The one off that album, Bill Watrous plays on it.
Yeah.
Matt Kubis is playing piano on it, and it's my regular band, which the guys are still cranking away.
Oh, okay, here we go.
And there it is. There it is in all its glory.
That's the big money maker, man.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's all over the world, that shirt.
Oh, let's see. I'm wondering, Taylor has been with me a lot over the last 2 years. He's given me all kinds of great questions over the years, which I've copied down. And
Yeah.
one thing I actually like, one question, do you have any favorite books, whether or not it's about jazz or something else, that inspire you or help you?
Oh, books. I was so bad at reading. I don't know why that was. I would read more joke books than anything. That's
Okay, well, maybe that's valid too.
yeah. Well, David Letterman had a top 10 book out that was great. I love that, the top 10. As far as music goes, I did, because of this goes back a long way. The first one that I got that I kind of took a lot from was the Henry Mancini book, Sounds and Scores. And that's a good one. I had the Don Sebesky one. I didn't understand it. I kept pouring through it, and I wasn't quite sure about that one. But Henry Mancini, his book, he explained things pretty well, but you really had to kind of go through it yourself and go, okay, now what is he doing here? Fortunately, he had in the old days, they had the little records that came with it. They got CDs now, and I think it's downloads or whatever. But you could go back and go, okay, what did he do? Okay, he's putting a fifth here, and he's putting this here, and these guys are open, these guys are closed. So I learned, a bit from that, and that was a really good good book. Sammy's got a book out, which is great. Sammy's book, I didn't really get a chance, and I've been through it, but some of his advice and some of his comments, I think, are very right on stuff. I'm trying to think of any else. I don't know. Milton Berle's got a joke book. I like that one. That's a funny one.
I once did a gig with him. One time we were doing a casual in a temple in West LA, and who should be the guest artists but Milton Berle and what was his name? Red, he was an actor in that age group too. Red.
Oh yeah.
Short guy.
The short guy.
Red hair, obviously. Yeah. And that was interesting. Red was a really cool guy to the musicians and everything, and Milton was not.
Why am I not surprised?
He was really funny, but he wasn't like so hip to the music.
I was on the road. Helen Reddy on the road with Helen Reddy, and Henny Youngman opened for us in one place. That was hilarious. That was wonderful. That's the old days. He was very funny.
All right, Jim Fox. Thank you, Jim. You know Jim Fox, the guitar player.
Guitar player, of course.
Yeah. So
Carol says hello.
It's Red Buttons.
Red Buttons.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Apparently, you don't have
Jim
senior
doing?
moments.
What's Jim up to? What's he doing?
Yeah, Jim, what are you up to? Jim, you should be on this show. I'd love to talk to you on this show. Jim and I went to college together.
Oh, did you really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on the road with Carol, my wife, for a while.
Really?
With Bobby Vinton, I think.
So, is your wife a singer?
Uh-huh. Yeah, singer, piano player.
What is her name?
Carol Jolin. You wouldn't know her, but
I wouldn't.
She was Bobby's piano player and singer for 12 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. 2 musicians in the same family.
Oh, yeah. Well, my son is doing all the arranging for Dancing with the Stars. That's John.
Oh, wow.
And then my daughter is, she's got several groups that she sings with. So they're all, it's all musical here. It's all crazy. It's all
Wow.
nuts. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I remember when my friends, he was a jazz bass player and she was a singer, but she was also professionally a clown. And they actually got a house loan.
Yes. Yeah. Connor.
Yeah. And I was so impressed with that.
Connor.
That they got a house loan.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
Bass player and clown. They put it on the house loan. And of course they got the house. Greatest story of all time.
Taylor has another question. You probably have a funny story in terms of writer's block, but what helps you keep going when you feel stuck?
I haven't had one yet. It sounds like the most freaking arrogant thing to say. I have not had one.
Wow, interesting.
So yeah, I know people.
You were just born to do it, man.
Yeah, put notes on. It's like Alan Bergman said, we were born to put notes on a page, and so we're going to fill up pages. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Wow. Let's see. Do you have a favorite? This is another one of those questions. Like, there's not just one, but do you have a favorite gig that you did?
Yeah, two. I worked. Well, three. Jack Sheldon, I think I did for 14 years, and I sat right next to Jack. So Jack Sheldon Big Band. That was freaking amazing. That was wonderful, and we'd have all these people come and see us. Arturo used to come in, play all the time with us. And I mean, the band was incredible. Then I worked 14 years with my wife. We did a duo down in Newport Beach, and that was just stunning. She's just freaking great. I felt I was like singing with Streisand, and that ended for a while. And then I got this other gig. Right when that ended, I worked, I think, almost 10 years at the Balboa Bay Club with a quartet with this wonderful. Mark LeBrun was the leader. Paul Gormley and Matt Gordy was playing drums.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, and I had that for 10 years, and that was that was a mind trip. That was great. And Mark LeBrun is this absolutely phenomenal piano player, and Matt Gordy he's just an amazing drummer, amazing cat,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Paul Gormley is a great bass player. So, and we had that forever, and we just played jazz tunes. That's all we did all night. And Mark would sing, and then we just blow, and it was just stunning. Those were like three most incredible gigs ever.
Wow, that's really nice.
Yeah. And my heart is with the smaller groups like that. I never wanted to be the front man at all, period.
Yeah.
And so I was always in all these groups. I was kind of in the background, and it was just like, just get to do what you do. And, you don't have to worry about anything else. And man, it's so much fun. So much fun.
That's cool.
Watching Jack work was amazing. So.
Yeah. I worked at the Balboa Bay Club. It was an interesting room.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, we had regulars at that point. We were doing had regular dancers, so it was always packed. And so we just played like swing tunes, Fly Me to the Moon or whatever. And then what was cool for me on that gig is that it wasn't cool, but Mark was skiing and he ran into a tree, and he couldn't play piano, and so he busted his arm into 16 pieces. So they had to put a titanium thing, and he couldn't play. So then I wound up playing piano, which was really killer. I mean, that was a mind blowing in itself, playing with this great rhythm section, playing piano, and then Mark would go up in front and he'd sing. And so that was a thing. Then we got better, and then I went back to playing saxophone. Great gig, great times.
Well, Tom Kubis, this is, about 2 hours later.
Is it really? Seriously? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me your time. And
I hope I didn't offend anybody today. So I just want to make sure.
I don't think so. I didn't find anything offensive. Did you guys?
Yeah.
I don't
you
think
have to say that nowadays, I hope I didn't offend anybody.
Yeah, well.
But no, thank you so much for having me. It's great. It's fun. It's fun talking about music and talking about the cats, and again, I've still got the same big band that I've had for all these years, and I'm so thankful for that. It's just amazing.
I'm gonna have to come down one of your one of your Mondays and listen.
We skipped this month because of the COVID thing. It got a little hectic, and so I think we're going to go in February. So it's going to be like around February 25th, somewhere around there. So
cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tom.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really nice to talk with you.
Pleasure.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go. You can hit leave and
Okay.
go, and then I
All right.
will. I'll just mention a few things to the general public.
That sounds great.
Thanks, Tom.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Killer.
Tom Kubis, our wonderful guest today. Thursday through Sunday, we do archives. And so Thursday, tomorrow, an old friend of mine who used to live here and moved to Michigan, Sonny Wilkinson, a great singer and educator. And Friday, I got two of my friends from Australia to wake up super early and do it. Anita Wardell and Ingrid James, both two of Australia's best jazz singers. Saturday, the great Bob Shepard, who is an amazing woodwind player and has been on wonderful things that you've heard him on. And then Sunday, a really good arranger and pianist from Poland named Kuba Stankiewicz. And he's really good, really nice player. So that's Sunday. And next week, just for the live people, we're going to have Mark Dresser on Monday, who's an amazing bass player, mostly modern and avant-garde. And he's from San Diego. He's really, he's been around and he's really great. And then another bass player on Tuesday who used to live here and moved to Korea for a while and now I think lives in Kansas City, Ryan McGillicuddy. And then Wednesday, a friend of mine who used to live here and moved like to Amsterdam, I think, Leah Klein. And yeah, she's been living there a while now. So those are the live people next week. If you're in LA, just a word of Sina E, a really, really great singer from Denmark, is singing at Catalina's. She has a great band, Larry Kuntz on guitar, Josh Nelson on piano, Derek Oles on bass, and Peter Erskine on drums. And she's really, really good. Great voice, beautiful person, real respectful of the music, great musician, scatter, writer. I mean, really, and if you've been listening to this last conversation, you know that I do have a limit to people I hear who aren't respectful of the music, and she is respectful of the music. It's really great. So I'm really looking forward to Sunday. So you guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. Thank you again, Tom Kubis. It was really enjoyable speaking with you. Goodbye, y'all.